Hi everyone, welcome to another lesson on this mini course on differentiation for teachers. So today we're going to be talking about ensino fundamental anos iniciais, and the topic that I decided to use to reflect on how we can apply the theory of differentiation in this segment is differentiating in response to student readiness. So of course that I used the material by Carol Ann Thomason. I used differentiation in the brain for this class. We're going to think of what student readiness means and what are some examples, right? So Thomason defines readiness to an individual's current proximity to a specific set of knowledge, understanding, and skill designated as essential to a particular segment of study. So basically what she's doing is she's getting some Vygotskian theory, which Vygotsky is like a Soviet psychologist from the 30s. Well, he was born in the 30s, and actually he wasn't born in the 30s. He did his research back then in the 30s. And he says that in order to maximize learning, a task should be just a little bit beyond the learner's current reach, so that learners can use their social support, which means other peers, the material, the teacher, any information which is on the board, in order to scaffold their work and be able to bridge the gap between what they can't, what they can do without support and what they can do with a little bit of support. So we should always make sure that we propose tasks that are a little bit beyond the learner's current reach. When she tries to give us a tip on how to do that, Tomilson says it's useful to understand what is it that students should know, what students should understand, and what students should be able to do to perform a task. So if a student is not currently ready to handle a prescribed skill, which are the steps in mastery that you have to help them move through to arrive at that desired level? So I know that the difference here between what you know and what you understand, it's tricky, and it's a very small difference, but understand something is more complex than just knowing them. So when you understand something, you actually understand the reasons why it's that way. Let me give you an example. So this task is, I think it's from year 2 or year 1, and students need to draw their school snack today and their favorite school snack. So how can we tell the difference between knowing and understanding? Knowing is understand, sorry, I was going to use the verb understand. Not great explanation on my part. Knowing here would be some things are healthy, like fruits. Some things are unhealthy, like candy. Understanding would be fruits are healthy because they have more fiber, because they have more vitamins, because our stomach takes a really long time to digest them. And candy is unhealthy because it has way too much sugar, and our bodies don't take that much time to digest them, so we get hungry really quickly if we just eat candy. So that's the difference here between knowing and understanding. So I would say that in order to draw especially the favorite snack, right? Students would have to reflect about that, about the difference between healthy and unhealthy. And I know that for us that seems really silly, but for them it might be challenging. So yes, that's the first step in terms of differentiating, to make sure that students understand why some foods are healthy and other foods are unhealthy. And I feel that it might be a little bit daunting to tell them to choose between any kind of snack for their favorite snack. So this is the first tip that Tomilson gives in terms of differentiating when it comes to readiness. Don't ask open-ended questions. If you think that students might not be ready yet to deal with that many options, uh, give them a closed set of options. So just tell them you can have flashcards, or you can draw on the board, or you can write on the board. So here are the snacks that you can choose from: cake, fruit, and chips. So from these three options, which is your favorite snack? Of course, that my snack today, you cannot give them options, because otherwise you give all the options that you know students brought as snacks on that day. So I feel that that works best for the second task. So that's, of course, that this is only an example, but this is the first thing that we can do. We can make sure that instead of asking open-ended questions, we're asking questions in which we give our learners choice. The same thing happens when we have a listening passage or a reading passage, and you want to ask a comprehension question for your learner. So if you feel that they're not ready yet to deal with more complex questions, ask them a true or false question. So the sorry, um, the last option you have for the task, the better and more appropriate is going to be for students who are less ready to tackle with more complex language. So make sure that you include a true or false question as a comprehension question, or make sure that you ask or you give them two choices when you're asking them a concept check question, like if you're explaining the difference between healthy and unhealthy. Right, let's take a look at the second task. So this is from year 5. It's from the CLIO task, and students need to read these different texts and match the headings to the paragraphs, and then they have to organize from the simplest to the most complex structure. So again, making that distinction between what students know, what students understand, and what students need to do is going to be really useful here, because know is knowing the names, how we can name that body structure. Understanding is actually understanding what that body structure does and how you can explain it. Because if you're going to order it, which is what they have to do, right? It's the skill. They have to order it from the least to the most complex. So that is going to demand that they understand the concept of what is less complex and what is more complex, and that they actually understand what the different body structures do in order to say this one is less complex, this one is the most complex. So here, what you can do is make sure that you do part of the task as a model. So over there, when you have that task, number 3 is cell, and that is the simplest structure from that list. So you can give them that information. You can say that number 3 is the simplest structure and explain why it's the simplest structure. So it's the smallest one. Cells are the building blocks of life, but they basically only do one thing. They don't do multiple things, and that's why they're not so complex. And then instead of ordering 5 elements, students only have to order 4. You can also make sure that you ask concept check questions to have evidence to understand if students really get why, for example, number 3 is the simplest body structure. So I would say these are some ideas related to readiness. Give students options. Don't ask them open-ended questions. Make sure that you perform part of the task as a model. Make sure that you ask them closed questions like true or false questions, or even questions where they have to complete with two options. Make sure that you offer them two options when you're asking concept check questions to make sure that they understand the texts. Uh, eh, I think all of those are ideas in which we can use this theme of differentiating in terms of readiness to help you with your Ensino Fundamental Anos Iniciais lessons. All right, I'll see you soon in the Ensino Fundamental Anos Finais lesson. See you there.